All right, welcome everybody. John Morris here, johnmorrisonline.com, and welcome to my weekly web dev Q&A. So this is a new show that I'm going to be doing, and in this show, I'm going to be answering the questions that I get. So I get a lot of questions from email, Twitter, YouTube, so on and so forth. So I'm going to be answering those questions and trying to help you get over the roadblocks that you might be experiencing in your web development career. So I have a number of questions that I had submitted beforehand here. Of course, if you have questions live, you can feel free to answer those as well. So I'm just going to wait a little bit here, let the people jump on. If you're just jumped on, if you could say hi or hello so I know that you are here and I can give you a shout out and say hi. So and I'm going to go ahead while we do that and grab my questions down here. Also, just in case you're not able to make the live broadcast, I will be posting the replay of this on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/JohnMorrisVideo, then you'll, of course, you can always get on Periscope for 24 hours. You can get the replay, but I'll be posting it permanently on YouTube at youtube.com/JohnMorrisVideo. So, all right, looks like we have a few people on here. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right into the questions that I've been asked. Again, if you have any question that you'd like to ask live, feel free to go ahead and do that. Before I do that, a little bit about my setup so you know where I'm looking. Obviously, I have my phone right here as my camera. I actually have a screen down here that I am casting to so that I can see. I can use the high quality camera lens on my phone, but I can still see what people are submitting down here. So, hey Paul, how you doing? From Indiana. Good to see you. Good to have you on live with us. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. But I have my laptop down here with the questions. I have my screen down here. So if you see me looking down, I'm just making sure that I'm seeing everything because of the way that I'm doing this. All right? All right, so let's go ahead and dive into some of these questions. So the first question I got, I don't have a name on this one. This one was actually received via a survey, so I don't have a name on this, but we'll go ahead and answer this question. So I am 51, a woman, and I'm beginning to think I have reached the glass ceiling as a developer. I've been getting interviews for full-time jobs, but I keep losing out to younger and cheaper. So I've been asked this question in a number of different ways. Sometimes people ask me, am I too old to get into web design? Do I need to be young in order to get into web design, et cetera, et cetera. So my answer is that you have to understand first and foremost that like it or not, age is a factor. Okay, so employers do look at age, and a lot of times even clients look at age, but even we do it. If we're assessing presidential candidates or all sorts of different things, people consider your age. So I'm not going to give you the fluffy, good sounding answer. I'm going to give you the real answer, which is people do pay attention to that. Now, that said, if everything else is the same, then age may be a reason why you're not getting this or that job. But rarely is everything else the same. And so I think sometimes age becomes, and again, I don't know you, I don't know your specific case, but I think age can become a bit of a cop-out. We think that that's the reason why we're not getting hired, when oftentimes when I look at people asking these questions and I get more detail, there's other things that are there that are red flags as to why someone might not be hiring you. So you really have to assess whether it's actually age why you're not getting hired. Now, to answer the general question, is it a young person's game? Do you have to be young in order to be a web developer? And the answer is absolutely not. I know for a fact because I wasn't someone who was born a web developer. I didn't have a family where I was learning web development at age 7 and grew up in a techie family. The complete opposite, as a matter of fact. So I grew up in a family of athletes. I really didn't even know what a computer was. One of my older brothers had one that he liked to play around with, but I never really did anything more with it than play games with it. So it just wasn't something that I was into. It wasn't a big part of my life. And I didn't even get into web development until I was 23, 24 years old. And so I got into web development very, very late. And so I understand what it's like coming into the game late and dealing with people who've been in the game for a serious amount of time. You don't have to be young in order to get into it. However, again, it can be a factor, and you need to understand that, and you need to make sure everything else that you're doing. Welcome, Jones and Ford Tech. Glad to see you on. You need to understand that everything else that you're doing needs to be up to par. It needs to be essentially better in order for you to get hired. So I'm really skeptical whether it's actually your age that is keeping you from getting hired. I'm going to assume that there's other things that are there that need shored up in order for you to get hired. As far as cheaper, again, that's a battle in any industry, really. With the way globalization works, there's oftentimes someone out there there's always going to be someone out there that's cheaper than you. What you have to do is do a good job of selling yourself so that that clients or potential employers see cheaper as more of a risk. They see you as someone who's much higher value, someone who is much more of a guarantee, who they can rely on so that you may cost more. They believe in you more. So, again, those are the ways that you deal with those two things. All right, this next question comes from Raghav Kumar. Hopefully I said that correctly. And pretty straightforward here, essentially saying that I have no clients. What do I need to do in order to get clients? And so, again, there's a long list of things that we could cover in terms of what you need to do in order to get clients. And I'm going to assume, it's not said here, but I'm assuming freelance clients. But the big picture is you have to understand that there's tons and tons and tons of other developers out there. There's plenty of people that are out there doing what you can do, knowing what you know, and plenty of people out there who probably know more and have a better, have been doing it longer and so forth. If you're trying to compete solely on talent, you're going to have a really hard time because there's always someone out there more talented than you. And so you have to do a good job. I see this a lot with web developers. They shy away from the idea of selling themselves. You have to get over that. You have to accept that you're going to have to sell yourself, and then you have to get good at it. So in that, then there are some very basic, simple things that you can do. Most of the time when I see this question, it's from someone who's just starting out. And so if you're just starting out, there's a couple pieces of advice that I would give you. Oftentimes when you're just starting out, you've never had any clients, so you have no portfolio. The first thing that you need to do is get a portfolio. Now there's a couple ways that you can do that. Either you can, nothing says your portfolio has to be filled with actual client projects. It can be filled with things that you build to showcase your talent. So you can just build things that aren't necessarily for anybody, right? They're just for you to build, A, to practice, and B, to put in your portfolio. You can do that. And so build 5 to 10 things that you can then put in your portfolio so people can see what it is that you're capable of. Now, don't be dishonest and say that these are from clients and put like fake client names and stuff on there when they're really not, right? What we often call this in the industry is a study, right? And so it comes from artistry and painting and stuff where they would do studies like that and so forth. You can do the same thing. So create things that aren't necessarily for a client and put them in your portfolio so you can build that up. Then as you get clients, replace the ones that weren't for clients with the ones that were for clients, because those will be better portfolio items. Second thing you can do, and it's probably the recommended way of doing it, if you can get access to people to be able to do this with, is just do some free projects for people. A lot of people in this industry and other industries start out by doing free work for other people. It's not denigrating. It's not a knock against you. Almost everybody has to do it when they first start out. So Find some people who and make it relevant to what you want to do long term. Okay. Don't just pick your brother or your friend because they'll say yes. Try and find somebody that's actually relevant to the kind of work that you want to do long term. So if you want to do websites for businesses, small businesses, find some small businesses where you live and say, hey, I'll redo your site for free. Okay. If you can't do that and you're just not getting anybody to do that, then of course go to a brother or friend or somebody that will let you do it. But try to make it relevant to what you want to do long term. Okay. So do those free projects, get the testimonials from those people and put those into your portfolio. The other thing that's going to help you with is you'll actually get some experience working with clients. Even if it's your brother or a friend or your mom or whoever, treat them like they're a client. Do it exactly how you would do it as if you didn't know that person so that you get experience with that. Okay? So that's the first thing is build up your portfolio. That's probably the most important thing. And of course, put that on a website that you build to showcase what it is that you do and sell your services. The second thing, and probably something that's not as people don't think of as much, is start creating content. So you want to identify the ideal client that you want to work with. So again, if you want to work with small businesses or whatever type of client that you want to work with, you want to identify your ideal client. What would be the best for you to work with? Then start creating content that is relevant to those people related to what you do tech-wise. Okay, so if you're building websites for small businesses, maybe you can start creating content about how small businesses can get more out of their website, or how to overcome these annoying tech problems, or whatever you identify as the type of content that you can create that will attract those people to that content. That helps you to start building a relationship with those people. I've gone into several different markets. I've done projects of my own, projects for small businesses around where I live. And every single time, the initial strategy is get the website up, get the initial sales pages and kind of the mandatory stuff for having a website up. And then the very first thing we do after that, before we do anything else, is start creating content so that we can start attracting an audience. And so that's what you want to do. You want to start creating a content, start attracting an audience, building an email list, building Twitter, Facebook, followers, etc., etc. Those are the things that you want to do, because as you build that audience, and I've proven this to myself time and time again, a certain number of those people will siphon off into asking to work with you, and hiring you. So that's the next big thing that you want to do. Have a portfolio and start creating content. All right. So I think I've probably given you enough to go on with that one for now. So we'll move on to the next question. So the next question comes from Davis Rogers Jr. And again, if you're watching live, if you have a question you'd like to ask, go ahead and feel free to ask that live, and I will try to get that answered for you. All right. So this is from Davis Rogers Jr., and it says, I'm tired. It's fun learning, but I'm ready to build something that will be my legacy. So interestingly enough, this is actually a fairly common question that I get, is people who say they no longer love web development, or they've kind of fallen out of love with it, or they're getting disillusioned with it. And my experience with this, with myself, because I went through this, with family members that have gone through this, with people that have, these people that I've talked to with this, is that there is a transition that happens at some point. A lot of people, when they get into web development, they really love it because of the learning aspect of it. Learning something new is fun, especially when it's something with web development where you can write some code and get a web page to do something that you couldn't get it to do before. You're actually creating and building things, and you're making things happen on a web page. You've used the internet before, and you saw all these things that people could do, and you're starting to see that kind of stuff happen. It's really fun, and it's exciting, and at first that's what you fall in love with. But as time goes by, you learn more and more things. There's less for you to get excited about because you've already learned a lot of it, and you've experienced that euphoria of learning so many times that it starts to lose its luster a little bit. And so you get kind of down to the brass tacks of do I really enjoy doing this? Is this something that I really love doing, and is it something I want to do long term? Now, it's entirely possible that the answer may be no. It may be that you don't love it. And if it is, sorry that you wasted so much time, but it's probably best that you don't pursue it, because I believe that you should pursue the thing that you ultimately love. And so you should go back and reanalyze and figure that out. More times than not, though, what it really is it's not that you don't necessarily love doing it. It's just, it's not the same euphoria that you got when you were learning things. And so what you need to do in order to deal with that, what I found to work for me, is that you get really, really, first off, you need to be, if you're not at that, when you reach that point, if you still haven't taken any clients, or you're not working for a company, or you haven't launched some sort of product already, you need to do that. I recommend you do that sooner rather than later. You should be taking on clients very, very quickly after you decide that you even want to start learning web development, or applying for jobs, or trying to build something that you're going to, sell or let people use, or somehow have it exposed. But so if you're not doing that, you need to be doing that. That's going to help in and of itself. But then you need to make sure those projects that you're involved with are projects that you really care about. What often happens with web developers, and I get it, we all have to make ends meet, but we get caught up in making this our living, and we'll take on any and every type of job. That will kill you. That will destroy your spirit. And so you need to make sure that you take on jobs that you actually care about, that were with people that you actually like, and that's going to be the thing that then takes you out of that transition from where you're feeling disillusioned. You're no longer learning things as rapidly, and that'll carry you into now you're working on projects that you actually care about, and that'll give you that kind of energy back. All right? So hopefully that helps with that. Next question is from Alan Physics. So he says, I don't want to use a framework and code in pure PHP. Is that a good idea? So I have to answer this question, yes. Although I don't think, if you want to use a framework, by all means, go for it. I think it's a good learning experience. I personally, the reason I have to answer this question yes is because that's what I do. I don't rely on any sort of framework, but I don't necessarily have anything against them either. So one of the things that, I guess one of the reasons why is oftentimes with frameworks are really, really good at doing the things that they're designed to do, which makes sense. But they're good at common things. So common things like interacting with a database, or just all sorts of things like that if you're coding in pure PHP, you have to build all by yourself. But if you're using a framework, they're often built into the framework, and it's dead simple to use, right? They're really, really good for those kinds of things. The problem you run into is when you want to try to get it to do something that's not, a part of the framework. Then oftentimes it can be fairly difficult to get it to do what you want it to do that's not already built in or a part of the framework. So there's advantages and disadvantages to pure PHP versus, using a framework. If you want to use pure PHP, that's totally fine. It's going to be more work, but you'll probably have more control and more flexibility. So it just kind of depends what you're after in that regard, but it's just fine to code in pure PHP. All right, this one is Mohammed Rizwan. So again, hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad. And essentially this question boils down to I'm having problems with confidence. And so again, this is a big thing for web developers. I know I went through this. This actually held me back quite a bit, that when you start learning web development, you think in your mind that there's this right, perfect way to do things. And there just isn't. There's not some perfect 100% right way of doing anything. That's actually the benefit of web development, and the way web development is set up right now, is that there's a number of different ways to accomplish things. So it's okay. You don't have to worry about putting your code out there. And yes, there'll be people that critique it, but you have to take that as a benefit, as a value that will help you get better. and not, and those people won't necessarily say it that way. They won't say, oh, it's okay. They may get on you, but you have to understand that what ultimately they're saying is that's not how they do it, right? And so don't be afraid to put your stuff out there. And the only way, the core of this is the only way that you can get confident about anything, but especially web development, is through competence, is by getting good at it, practicing it and getting good at it. And so the only way that you're going to do that is by actually putting yourself out there. And I found that you can have general confidence, and I tend to have general confidence, but even in very specific instances, you can lack confidence, even if overall you're a fairly confident person. So you could be confident in a lot of other areas of your life, but in this particular instance, you lack confidence because you just haven't done it. So a good example of that for web developers is I find people who spend a lot of time practicing their technical skill and coding, and then when it comes down to actually getting clients, find that they're still really, really nervous about taking on clients. Even though they're great when it comes to their coding skills, they're still nervous with taking on clients or applying for a job or whatever it is because they've never done it. And so the best way to look at this is you need to, in order to grow the most, look at all of the things that scare you, and those are the things that you want to focus on trying to do, because those are the things that are going to allow you to grow the most and help you grow your confidence the most. And so again, focus on those things and do those things first. Honestly, a good example from my life is this right here. I do a lot of tutorial videos on YouTube. I got almost 200 some. I've done a bunch of videos, for other projects and so forth. But doing this live right here like this, it's something I've never done. So even though I've done all these different videos and have all the setup to do it and been in front of a camera a bunch of times, doing it live like this is still a little bit nerve-wracking for me, which is why I'm making myself do it. So in a way, I'm practicing what I preach. So, and I'm very specifically doing this, because I want to answer your questions, but also because I want to get over the fear of doing it. I want to get better at it, and I know that the only way to do that is to get on here and do it. And so it's the same for you with web development. If you want to grow confidence, you have to practice, you have to get confident, and you have to keep at it. All right, so those are all the questions I picked out for today. I don't want to make these videos too super long and make this session, 30, 40, 50 minutes. But I do want to jump on here and answer some of the questions that really stick out to me. So again, this is a live Periscope that I'm going to be doing every Tuesday. I'm not setting a specific time because of the way my life is. I work from home. I have kids that are home with me during the day, and so I have to be able to adjust. And so I'm not setting a set time, but I'm going to try to do it early afternoon every Tuesday. So if you want to jump on live, if you have a question that you'd like to ask live, you can sure do that. The replay will also be available on periscope.tv/jpmorris for 24 hours, I believe. And then I'll also be uploading this to YouTube at youtube.com/jpmorris. So if you don't want to ask a question live, or you think of a question later, you can tweet it to me at jpmorris on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube, like I said, youtube.com/johnmorrisvideo. Over on Facebook at facebook.com/johnmorrisonline. And I will try to get that question on the show. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next week.